I don't pay Hollywood because I don't appreciate what Hollywood does, but I did pay for one movie. It's Ready Player One, because I was aware of the book and I was aware they're pre-echoing the transhumanist future they're pushing for. The main character in that, when he goes into his little transhuman world, his name was Anorak. What's Anorak backwards? Corona. This game has been coming for so long, and everybody in a position of power is part of the stacked deck.
Hey friends, just to let you know, stay tuned to the end of this interview for a breakdown of the two ways this thing could go. It's going to go one of two ways. Either we go to a gold-backed currency or we go to a one-world currency. That's what we're facing. So stay tuned to the end for that part of the discussion and a tweet from Joe M. with a new theory over on Twitter. And I also want to let you know, until March 30th at midnight, there is a sale over at Red Pill Living. I'll leave the link below. You can get 15% off liposomal vitamins with coupon code IMMUNE. Liposomal vitamins are the best way to get these nutrients into your body and deliver the nutrients directly to your cells. And right now, you save 15% on liposomal vitamin C, liposomal D3, and liposomal B12. They even have liposomal turmeric, the very best vitamins you can get to help keep your system healthy and fight the coronavirus. I'll leave the link below this interview. Now let's get started with my friend Crrow777. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in. I had the afternoon free to some degree and got an email from my buddy Crow saying, hey, what's going on, man? And I thought, why not hop on the line right now and have a chat about this crazy stuff we're all going through. Crow, how are you?
I'm good, man. Hope everything's at least passable in your neck of the crazy woods.
Well, we're hanging in there, but I don't know about you, but I'm pretty fed up with what we're seeing, the nonstop fear-mongering from the mainstream media. Boy, you know, the thing was a little scary to begin with if you were paying attention to Wuhan and any of the stuff coming out of China, but now it's just clear that the looting is on. I've done videos about it, and in fact, I did a video on March 18th, which I would really advise people to go back and watch. It was titled Lockstep, Blueprint for a Rockefeller World. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. What are your thoughts on what's going on right now, my friend? A $2 trillion bailout, a $2 trillion stimulus package. I want to break down those numbers in a second. Your thoughts?
Let's not call it a stimulus package. That's nonsense. We think we know what's going on. You know, the money matters have never really been my main focus, but it certainly appears like while everyone was hiding from a make-believe illness called the common cold, we became some form of socialism, maybe. I don't even know what to call it. National socialism. Anyhow, if there's a bad kind of socialism that's worse than every other kind like that, that's actually what's happened. The government's just bought up or bought into almost everything. And the housing, too. You know, they announced, oh, we're not foreclosing, we're not booting people out. Apparently, it appears all that's been bought up. So what does that mean? They didn't evict them, they just bought their house? Or I'm not sure what it's going to look like when the dust finally settles and everyone quits staring at the make-believe reason for all this.
Well, let me say, you know, I don't think it's just a common cold, but it doesn't really matter, does it? It's a manufactured pandemic that was talked about in this document, a May 2010 document from the Rockefeller Foundation. And the document was titled Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. And if you skip down to page 18, it was a section titled Lockstep, a world of tighter top-down governmental control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. So get this. The section talked about a global pandemic, and then they drew this conclusion: from pandemics to transnational terror to environmental crises and rising poverty, leaders around the world took a firmer grip on power. This all on the back of a pandemic. From May 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation. So I would make the argument that if patriots were in control and we were taking this thing back from the bad guys played the pandemic card, Crow.
Well, there it is. It's been all the way back since the silly Illuminati card game. All the players were pre-forecast, even the ideas. From my point of view, it's all made up. They did this during cold season. if you want to lock down the world to this extreme, you better be able to point to a hell of a lot of sick people and body bags piling up, and you can't point to either one of those things. And where I am, and where I came from in San Diego, I have a lot of people there. It's business as usual. They've closed a lot of things, but people are just going, well, at least not the cowardly people that are hiding because they're new. I mean, if the news, it's gotten so bad that we made the joke the other day, if the news told everyone to change their name to Susan, we'd have a lot of Susans in the world.
Well, what's troubling to me is this rush to pass this stimulus package, which is nothing but a looting. It's an absolute total looting. And I want to demonstrate that for folks. But first, let me play a soundbite from our buddy Dave over at X22. And I've invited Dave on. He's accepted. And we're going to talk through some of our differences next week because I'm a little bemused by the constant spin that's being put on this stuff. Let's just listen to Dave's take on the stimulus package.
And we know that Trump is trying to get the needed funds to the people as much as he possibly can. This is not going to the banking system. This is not going and being funneled to the elite. These funds from this stimulus package is going to be going to Main Street.
All right, I'll pause it there. Obviously, that's 100% incorrect. And Dave just posted this on March 26th, 133,000 views in less than 24 hours. And I like Dave, but this is not true. Only $350 billion of the $2 trillion quote unquote stimulus package is going to small businesses. The rest is a bunch of absolute garbage, alluding for special interests, alluding for the elite. They're taking way more of it than they're giving the people. And let me just show you this, my friend. I just did this earlier today out of frustration. Honestly, this is what I typed into Google. You ready? I'll do this for you live.
Okay.
Get this. 2 trillion divided by 300 million. Let's say there's 300 million people in this country. There's a few more than that, but this is what I typed in. 2 trillion divided by 300 million. Are you ready for this? Do you know what that works out to for every man, woman, and child?
I'm not a math guy, but I'm guessing you're about to show me.
Look at that number. I honestly, man, I just did that today on a whim. $6,666.66 for every man, woman, and child. Now, look, it kind of leaves me speechless that it worked out to be 666s, but beyond that, I've got a family. We've got 6 people in our family. Do the math on $6,700 times 6. And they're talking about sending people a $1,000 check. By the way, most people aren't going to qualify for that. A lot of people won't qualify for that. I think you have to demonstrate a 25% or more loss of your income based on the coronavirus to get any of that money. So
I won't be taking any of the money regardless.
A $2 trillion stimulus package works out to about $6,700 per man, woman, and child in this country. And some people are going to get checks for $1,200, $1,000. It's just absolute lunacy. It's an absolute looting, and they're going to bankrupt the country by design.
People probably aren't going to like what I'm going to say, but it's the closest I can come to correct. I'm not a guy who watches the money markets. I'm not a guy who's really paid a lot of attention to that. But when this happened, I immediately realized that no emergency goes to waste. So I started looking behind the scenes. And what I first found is the news isn't covering anything helpful. They're just trying to cause panic. So I started looking for the people that look in the money markets. As it turned out, I had some friends who are very highly placed in the trading of metals and currency. This is what it looks like. It looks like the Federal Reserve has been just dumping dollars into every other Federal Reserve. It looks like what's happened is our government has become basically socialist, or I don't know what the right word is. They've basically bought debt up, which is equivalent to, I think, what they call a credit default swap or something like that. So the question becomes, on the tail of this, the idea of stimulus, the idea of giving people all this money, are we moving into some form of socialism without the permission of the people? Because that's really what it appears to be. It appears that the government has just bought into every major industry, buying up all the debt. It appears that the dollars have been poured into every central bank around the world. And you remember back when, what was it, 600 billion or whatever it was, the big bailout under Bush, and people freaked out? From what I'm hearing from insiders in the money markets is they're spending that much every few hours now. They're printing money like it's gone out of style. And from their point of view, it looks like some form of socialism is being put in place. Now, do I know this for certain? Not until the dust clears. But what is for certain is we've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, I'm just trying to play some printing press magic here because the Federal Reserve is printing our currency into oblivion. Did you see that they've given themselves carte blanche to do unlimited printing? They don't even have to say what they're going to do. They're going to unlimited print now.
This is how fiat currency is created, right? Someone pushes a keyboard, invents a number, and then this thing goes to work and it starts making paper with absolutely no value in a system that is currently being used to take over Lord knows how many economies. The amount of control that's attempted to be exerted here is staggering, and it's not just our country. But what do you call it when your government merges with industry? What's the proper term for that? Is that national socialism or, I mean,
fascism?
Honestly, what would you, maybe that's way close. You know, I'm with you there. Because basically we're supposed to be democratic. We're supposed to be some form of republic. And this was all done because they could. So maybe fascism is a much better word for it. But when everyone quits hiding from this thing that they're afraid is going to kill them and the dust clears, they're all going to feel pretty silly about all these people they backed and all these people who are here to help, because they're all complicit. From my point of view, this deck has been stacked for a long. You want to know how long this deck has been stacked? I'll go into the recent history. I don't pay Hollywood because I don't appreciate what Hollywood does, but I did pay for one movie. It's Ready Player One, because I was aware of the book and I was aware they're pre-echoing the transhumanist future they're pushing for. The main character in that, when he goes into his little transhuman world, his name was Anorak. What's Anorak backwards? Corona. This game has been coming for so long, and everybody in a position of power is part of the stacked deck, unless they stood up against it. And I don't see anybody standing up against it. Furthermore, when the one thing that is different, when I go out, people are still doing it. They're laughing at the social distancing. It's stupid. People have been together since the beginning of time. We don't kill each other. It's a whatever. So we go into this store and they have taped on the ground these lanes. And as you come to the checkout, there's these boxes that you're supposed to stand in, taped on the floor 6 feet apart. And I walked in and I went, oh my Lord, I was going to make a Space Mountain joke from the way you get into Disneyland rides. But then I saw the boxes. Guy in front of me looks at me, gives me a knowing look, and he steps out of the box. So I give him a knowing look, I step out of the box, and I belly right up to him, shoulder to shoulder. And I said, is it just me or is this beyond ridiculous? And we sat there and talked while we waited for our spot in line.
It is ridiculous. I just said the same thing to my son last night because it's so frustrating. I'm frustrated by this. We're all frustrated by this. And it's ridiculous because they've shut down all of these small businesses, the restaurants, the bowling alleys, the movie theaters, the bars, right? They've shut it all down, but people congregate all day long at Costco and Walmart. People congregate all day long at the grocery stores. You can go.
What about the first part? You know, 250 of you can gather, but 251 is too much. If you had a pandemic, 5 people would be too much. And by the way, even the word pandemic comes from the Greek god Pan, which is also the root for the word panic, by the way. Go look up your classic history, education you never got and understand what's being leveraged on here. Every nonsensical hoax that you see in this world leverages off one of those old myths. There's a reason people used to get classic educations, because they wouldn't be fooled about CNN's little trick with truth down the well when CNN became 24/7. And they wouldn't be fooled by this pandemic. And the fact that you just happened to show all the 6s is just more comedy piled on top. This is a put-up. There's nothing about this isn't a put-up, but it's not a funny put-up, because what they basically did is crashed Lord knows how many economies, and then they went in and bought everything.
That's right.
That's what it appears. So, you know what? Thank you for saying the word fascism, because right now I am with you all day long. I wanted to try to figure out, is this like National Socialism gone berserk? But no, fascism, that fits, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that was the Mussolini definition, right? the corporatocracy, the
Right.
corporations in bed with the
What
government.
do you call it when your supposed democratic, or if you want to call it a republic, whatever, government merges with industry all the way across and then turns around and buys every bit of debt on everything standing?
Well,
From
how about this,
housing
man?
to
I mean, this should make people enraged, this video that's playing right now of the printing presses of the $20 bills. This should make people enraged because just a couple of things. If you think about the fact that, again, I'm going to pick on Boeing, but Boeing enriched the executives and the leadership in the company with stock options based on them buying back their own stock and running this stock market bubble up to infinity. At one point, Boeing stock was trading around $350 per share. Meanwhile, they had planes that have been grounded because instead of putting the money into the technology and research for a new, better MAX plane, they tried to just repurpose the existing Boeing plane and put bigger engines under it, and the damn things fell out of the sky. So now Boeing wants a bailout from the American taxpayer. So this is the very definition of fascism. And then you get these Congress critters coming up with a $2 trillion stimulus package, and only a small fraction of it goes to the small businesses that they've shut down.
But wait a minute. We've run some episodes on Crrow777 radio that talk about the admiralty law and merchant law that's crept in everywhere. And it's beginning to appear like accepting that money is entering into a contract. In other words, they did this thing, this whatever you want to call it, fascist, socialist, whatever it's properly called. Maybe they'll make up a new word. That's you accepting to be part of it when that starts to happen. And I won't be taking any of it. But the other point I would make here is there are now all these lists of all the senators that dumped stock right before this all happened. And as everybody knows, we have the biggest CEO jump of ship in the history of the United States. Something like 220 CEOs jumping ship. And each of those are now coming to light that they were dumping stock before they jumped ship. How did everyone know? This isn't just an inside job. This is one of the foulest things we will probably ever witness. And it matters what people do now. Will we stand up like adults, or will we let that Rockefeller document act like we're stupid children with no rights in this world? What did it say? Limited public pushback? Hey, screw you, bucko. I live in this world. Who died and made you Lord Bufu Emperor? Yeah. You know, as far as I'm concerned, he's the guy behind the curtain. And
well, that's why we need to be outraged by this printing. I'm sorry to interrupt, but this printing that we're watching right now enrages me because I know who owns the printing presses. I know where this story began, and I know how it ends. It ends with the enslavement of the American people to unrepayable debt, all by design, now on the back of a phony pandemic, or a real pandemic. Again, it doesn't matter. The fact is they're using it to loot the treasury, to loot the people. We've all been conned since birth to trade our labor for this goddamn fiat paper that you see printing before you. It's worthless. It's worthless fiat paper, and the only thing that gives it value is the faith of the people that it will buy goods and services. And Alan Greenspan, I'll play the soundbite again, famously said, "We can print in any amount you like to guarantee social programs in perpetuity, but we cannot guarantee the purchasing power of said currency."
We don't have a system that's working. We have one that basically moves cash around, and we can guarantee cash benefits. It's far out and at whatever size you like, but we cannot guarantee their purchasing power.
Well, what happens when you just turn the presses on? And, you know, what this video is showing is the actual proof of the value. There was a time in my lifetime before the 70s when specie, gold or silver, backed these things. Those days are long gone. The only thing that backs this is I'm handing you an IOU, and I'm pretty confident that you'll hand it to someone else and they'll accept the IOU. That's the only thing that makes this work. But when you see what's going on here, it almost looks like they're intentionally putting the nail coffin in here to go to crypto or something. And by the way, there was just a crypto bill. And I know most people don't agree with me, but I have a degree in internet technology, and I have maintained the day we go to crypto, the human race will have lost more freedom than the entirety of every other part of history I'm aware of. And it's not per se because of the crypto, it's because of how we have to use it and the systems we have to use it. That's the problem.
That is the problem. And the problem also is that it's a small group of the world's elite that control this machine that you see making fiat dollars right before your eyes. It's a small group that own all of the central banks around the world, with the exception of just a couple nations that don't have Rothschild central banks. It's the Federal Reserve, a small group of elite that can decide how much of this crap to print. And nobody has oversight over them. They can literally destroy they can literally destroy a nation and an economy on the whim of a pandemic, on the whim of a Rockefeller Foundation scenario for the future of technology and international development. A document from May 2010, page 18, lockstep. A world of tighter, top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. All written about a pandemic.
Well, then we have things that we know exist in the world, like the Georgia Guidestones. By the way, on the 22nd, hint, 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 of this month, that was the 40th year to the day of the existence of the Guidestones, which some brilliant Mason carved and put up there in a line to the sky clock to inform us all there can only be 500 million human beings in the world to make all this work. And so I guess the real question is, are we all prepared to go back to these kind of feudal king and queen type times, or have we passed that up? And are people going to say, no, man, sorry, not so fast? Part of the problem is here, what you're showing is they're not just crashing our economy, they're crashing Lord knows how many economies. And if the people I know in the money markets are accurately assessing what they see, the Federal Reserve is pouring at a rate that is staggering greenback dollars into every other Federal Reserve right now. And these things, you know, another thing is silver. I actually paid attention to silver because as we were coming into this year, I was already doing clips saying this is going to be a hell of a year. And I knew it for a number of reasons. I just didn't realize how it was going to come. Silver in the state of Rhode Island, as an example, was one day at $14, which was the spot price for an ounce of silver. That day in the paper, the state mint put out a thing saying, if your zip code is here, having every zip code in the state, you get this fantastic deal of 50% off a half ounce of silver. They sold a half ounce of silver for just under $50. The spot price was 14 an ounce. And so then they said, oh, all the silver reserves are gone. It never ends. What's gone on here and the run up. But the crash we're going to take on the tail of it is going to be staggering. And all the people who have to take the money, if the assessments we are making are correct, and it's not totally proven, that is almost like a contract, accepting the new system by cashing the check. As a matter of fact, they've gone so far as to say they'll direct deposit it in some people's accounts. Unreal.
Yeah, it's super troubling because just a few short months ago, we were all, or so many of us at least, me included, were very hopeful about the future of the country. But against all of that, I have to admit, I've consistently been troubled about and outspoken about the growing national debt. So even though I think Trump is far and away a better person to be in the White House than that witch Hillary Clinton, obviously the printing was continuing. And now the printing is continuing on steroids. $2 trillion and only $350 billion of it is going to small businesses.
I'll make a couple suggestions here, and I'll ask a question before I make the statement. What's going to happen with the primary that's still supposed to happen? It's been put off. Is that going to happen? Are we truly going to have another election? What if Trump's the last president? Has anyone thought about these things? Does anyone understand that Trump and Hillary are from the same royal Scottish bloodline? Does anyone understand that his picture is in that old 90s Illuminati card game? There could be a lot more than meets the eye here. And I think we have to be adult, and regardless of what we hoped for and what we wanted to be true, there's a new reality to face here. And some adult decisions are going to have to be made. I don't think any of this is an accident, and I don't accept that any of the people involved are not complicit. And even if they didn't want to be, I don't think they have a choice. I think the phone rings and tells them what they're going to do next, and they damn well do it.
Well, let me ask a question. If all is going according to plan and the Patriots are completely in control and there's nothing to worry about, why is the Department of Justice seeking new emergency powers for indefinite detention of U.S. citizens without writ of habeas corpus, without a trial? Why in God's name would they be asking for that power? Because, by the way, I like William Barr. I like some of these people that are seeking these new powers. Now, what if the people I didn't like were in control and they were seeking these new powers? I would be screaming from the rooftops, Crow.
Well, it sounds to me like people have to start to consider why something like this would be done. Is it possible that there are plenty of people in this country that are proud of America and still have respect for the red, white, and blue? And when they find out we are in fact fascist or socialist or whatever's just happened, they're going to lose their lunch and flip out? That's when powers like that get implemented. There are people that we know right now all over the country saying that National Guard troops have shown up in a number of places. For what? There are not body bags stacking up. There are not endless sick all around us. It's all a put up. So what's going on here? You're looking, and this is deadly serious. This is not a guess. You're looking at the largest coup d'etat that has ever been seen in the history of the world that we're aware of. And it's not just the United States. And bear in mind, this whole nonsense started in China, which shows you the complicit nature and the utter flaccid nature of the power governments actually have. Follow the money. There's where the power lies.
Yeah. Follow the money right back to the Rockefeller dynasty and the House of Rothschild sitting above them. You can follow the money to the IMF,
It's almost staggering. There was a time
World Bank
in the world of Catholicism that the idea of usury was a mortal sin. And yet some of the first usury we see came through the Medicis. Most people should know who they are, and the Fugars. And even the religious institutions all that time ago began to creep this thing that was a mortal sin and had been for centuries into the religious communities that knew better. And they didn't even change the laws until the 60s, by the way, or the early 1900s, I forget which. But it's the same story. Follow the money. They have always controlled everything. And it's sad that we have to admit to ourselves that these people we thought were our elected officials had our best interests and they were sticking up for it. Look what's going on here. These things are proven untrue at this point. We have to let go of our heroes. At some point, we have to face reality. And what you're looking at on your screen right now is what passes for power in the world we exist in.
Well, I want to say something about usury. It is such an evil tool.
Yes.
It's a tool of evil to be used against human beings to ensnare them. The lender is the owner. The borrower is the slave. And it just needs to be said, as you watch this printing of $100 bills on your screen right now, my friends, I want you to understand how they can inflate away, how they can make your labor valueless. All of the work that you've put in your entire life to building an IRA or a 401k, a retirement account filled with these dollars, it can all be hyperinflated away to nothing, making all of that labor you put in. You trade your labor for these fiat dollars. That's the way the system works. And after decades and decades and decades of work, maybe you can retire. But these people have the power to hyperinflate it all away.
They're doing
your
it
labor,
right now.
your labor,
right now. Yeah.
Your labor. You traded it for fiat, and they can inflate it away.
We looked for a common sense way to prove the evil that usury is. That basically one of the ways it came to us was through the religious institutions at the Vatican in old Italy there, where all roads lead. And what we finally came up with to try to describe it is nature is perfect, made by a creator. No man or woman can make a tree. No man or woman can make a fish. By its very existence, the nature that we have all around us is a perpetual thing that never needs a new tank of gas or anything. It is so perfect that it will just keep doing what it does, and all the things in it no man can replicate, which proves that it's a perfect system from our point of view. So when I go out in the field and I see a deer and see a baby deer, I know that that is normal. That is godly, for lack of better words. That's what deers do. But when I see a gold coin make baby coins, that's against nature. And that's what's going on with usury. It's basically a human being taking advantage of his wealth to rent you money at cost. And this was a mortal sin. And this is actually the foundation of all the nonsense we see going on now, was when usury was injected into everything we do. And it's, I don't know what to say about it. We're
It's
all
yeah.
we're all in a different world now. It's just that people haven't stopped being scared long enough to realize what's happened. It was a coup d'etat, a multi-nation coup d'etat.
It's so criminal. I just want people to stop and think about how criminal this system is. We all know it, but look, they're claiming a $2 trillion stimulus package, and it's packed with pork for elite and special interests. It's packed with garbage like, you'll love this, Crow, $60 million for NASA. I mean, it's absolute lunacy.
I
Spark
can
a
offer you
thought.
this. I don't know for certain it's true, but the people that actually work in and around Wall Street that I know and have to do with precious metals, the number you just stated is a very small fraction of what they're claiming has actually been spent. They're claiming the amount you just stated is happening almost daily.
Oh, well, that's true. There's this whole repo market thing that goes on, and the Fed being the lender of last resort overnight. I want people to remember how criminal this system is. What's been set up is so unbelievably criminal. Every single time, and we all do it every day, every time you transact using a Visa, a debit card, or a credit card, it doesn't matter. Every single time, whether it's to buy gas or groceries or a pack of smokes, the banks get a rake of between 2 and 3.5% on every transaction because you used that plastic card. It's unbelievable. And then we're constantly hearing about the banks needing a bailout. The banks are short on liquidity. The banks need to go to the overnight window and borrow from the Fed, a bank sitting on top of the banks. This whole system is so satanic in its brilliance, frankly. It is so satanic and evil that it cannot be overstated. And I really think that at the end of the day, you know who got this right? You know who lives their lives right? The Amish. Maybe we should have all taken a cue from the Amish, right? Smaller community, horse-drawn carriages, eating the food we grow, homeschooling our children, and not vaccinating. How about that?
You can't knock what works, and they're only using a thing that's worked forever. They just never gave in to the new systems. All created things will see their end. That's a fact. So even if we come up short here, or maybe enough of us will stand up that we don't, whatever comes of this, it will have a shelf life. And I'm guessing hundreds of years from now, when people look back at what the banks did here and the money lenders and the usury masters, there's going to be a different world that emerges when they look in reverse in horror at what these people are doing. It's indefensible, it's criminal, and it's as evil as you can be. And we're not talking about a few people. We're talking about every person in this country and every other country that just got pummeled by this fake pandemic. My point being is the works of mice and men have a shelf life. So even if we don't come out on top, this won't last forever.
Well, I do like words of hope, but I tell you what's troubling me as we take a look at the next 10 years. We're sitting in 2020, and just a few months ago, nobody saw this particular black swan coming, even though the Rockefellers addressed it back in May of 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation, talking about exactly this scenario, leading to more authoritarian top-down government control, which is exactly what we're seeing. And what troubles me is that we were winning, humanity was rising, people were waking up, the Great Awakening is real. And so they released a bioweapon. They released a pandemic. And now here we sit in 2020, and we know where they want to take us. They want to take us into a world government, a one world currency, and UN Agenda 2030 policies. So that's what troubles me, my friend, is we were winning. Humanity was rising. But this is the card they played.
Well, first of all, what they released was an idea. And the most infectious thing in this world took hold. It's called fear. This game is not over. And we're about to find out how many adults are still living in the world. People who are willing to stand up for what's right will do it in an adult way and not lose the order. That's probably a very bad idea to lose order right now. If martial law ever gets declared, then all bets are off the table. That is a very bad situation to be in. But nonetheless, what I've seen so far is a lot of people hiding. and that's not going to solve much of anything. So all I can say is treat each other well and stand up for what you know is right. The largest coup d'etat ever known in the history of the world has just happened. It's behind us now. What we're seeing now is just the remnants of a plan that was put in place so long ago it's hard to know. I don't know what else to say, but I guess I'm with you. Maybe fascism is a better way to describe what's happened.
All right, guys. And as we round out this conversation, I'll just read a couple of tweets. Number one, Donald Trump has signed the CARES Act, the single biggest economic relief package in American history, twice as large as any relief bill ever enacted, at $2.2 trillion. He says this bill will deliver urgently needed relief for our nation's families, workers, and businesses. And our friend Corey from Corey's Digs says, I realize this will help people to some degree, but I see it as one of the single biggest money grabs in history personally. But on the flip side of that is Joe M., who I like and follow on Twitter, saying, Patriots have bankrupted the Federal Reserve and absorbed its function into the U.S. Treasury. The cause of all wars, famine, and economic collapse for the past 100 years has been dissolved, and the people have reclaimed the money system. Congratulations, humanity. And he embeds this, I'm not sure who wrote it, but it says, the scheme essentially merges the Fed and Treasury into one organization. So meet your new Fed chairman, Donald J. Trump. Now, as I will discuss with Dave from X22 Report late next week, I do disagree with some of this hopium, because that's exactly what it is. Amidst a $2.2 trillion stimulus package is this idea that all's going according to plan. Meanwhile, our dollar, the world's reserve currency, is on its last legs. So how does this story end? Does it end with a new gold-backed dollar? Or does it end with Fed coin and moving us toward a one world global currency? These are the questions that we will continue to ask as this story continues to unfold. Crow, I appreciate you jumping on with me today. Again, as I've said in recent interviews, we haven't solved any of the world's problems, but this is an honest discussion about what we both believe is going on right now. And can you remind people how they can find you?
Yeah, the only true Crow site is Crrow777radio.com, Crrow777radio.com. There are fraud sites, so be careful. On YouTube, I'm just Crrow777, Crrow777. And Sean, I want to thank you for having me on. I want to wish you and your family the best. But what's happened here is a big deal, and it's not just our country. There are many countries that have been pulled into this net.
That is true, my friend. I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on today.
Cheers.
Cheers. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We very much appreciate it. Look for that interview with my buddy Dave over at X22 Report coming late next week. I appreciate Dave accepting the invitation. So there are a lot of viewpoints about what's going on, and we're just doing our best to bring you the truth as we see it. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for your support. Those who have downloaded the podcast now, it exists on iTunes. And thanks to you all. It's already in the top 100 news podcasts in the USA, and I really appreciate everybody's support. Also, I'll remind you, for real news 24/7, you can visit us directly at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda. Have a great weekend. God bless. Bye-bye.
I object to all these bailouts. It's no longer a capitalistic system or a market economy. It's kind of a crony system, where an aristocracy or plutocracy has huge privileges that the man on the street does not enjoy.